The ground shook. Not from an earthquake. Not from thunder. From motorcycles. 200 of them. All lined up outside a small house in Cedar Ridge, Indiana, engines roaring like a storm made of metal and fire. And inside that house, standing at his kitchen window with a cup of coffee frozen halfway to his lips, was a man who had no idea why they were there. His name was David Cole. He was 34 years old. He taught 5th grade at Maplewood Elementary. He lived alone. He had no enemies. He didn't owe anybody money. He had never even gotten a speeding ticket. And yet, right now, on this sunny Saturday morning in October, there were 200 bikers outside his door. Big men, tough men, leather jackets, bandanas, chains, tattoos covering every inch of skin, and they were all staring at his house. David's heart was hammering so hard he could hear it in his ears. His hand started shaking. The coffee cup slipped. It hit the floor and shattered into 100 pieces. But David didn't move. He just stood there, staring out the window, watching as more motorcycles pulled up, one after another after another. The noise was deafening. The whole street was filled with them. Neighbors were stepping out onto their porches, mouths open, phones in their hands. Some were recording. Some were calling the police. David's throat felt tight. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't think. All he could do was stand there and wonder the same thing over and over and over again. What did I do? David Cole was not the kind of man people noticed. He was average height, average build, brown hair that was starting to thin a little on top, glasses that were always a little smudged. He wore khakis and button-up shirts. He drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic. He lived in a small 2-bedroom house on a quiet street where nothing ever happened. Every morning, he woke up at 6, made his coffee, graded papers, drove to school, taught his students about fractions and the water cycle and the Revolutionary War, drove home, made dinner, watched TV, went to bed, and every single day was exactly the same. He didn't mind it. He liked routine. He liked quiet. He liked knowing what to expect. But on that Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. David had stopped at the grocery store on his way home from school. It was a small store, nothing fancy. Just a local place called Turner's Market where everybody knew everybody. He grabbed a basket and walked down the aisles, picking up the same things he always did. Bread, eggs, milk, pasta, a frozen pizza for Friday night. He was standing in the cereal aisle, trying to decide between Cheerios and Raisin Bran, when he heard it. A sound, a loud thud, like something heavy hitting the floor. David turned around, and that's when he saw her. An old woman, lying on the ground. Her purse had spilled everywhere, coins rolling across the tile, a glasses case, a pack of tissues, a small wallet with a faded photograph sticking out. She wasn't moving. For a second, David just stood there, his brain trying to catch up. Then his teacher instincts kicked in. He dropped his basket and ran. "Ma'am," he shouted. "Ma'am, are you okay?" He dropped to his knees beside her. She was older, maybe 70, maybe 75. Her face was pale. Her lips had a slight blue tint. Her eyes were half open, but she wasn't looking at anything. David's heart was pounding. He pressed 2 fingers to her neck, checking for a pulse. It was there. Faint, fast, weak, but it was there. "Somebody call 911, David yelled. A woman at the end of the aisle pulled out her phone, hands shaking. David looked back down at the old woman. "Ma'am," he said softly, "can you hear me? Squeeze my hand if you can hear me." Nothing. Her breathing was shallow, her chest barely moving. David remembered his CPR training from years ago. Every teacher had to take it, but he hadn't used it since. His hands were trembling. "Come on, David. Focus." He tilted her head back gently, making sure her airway was open. He checked her breathing again. Still shallow. Still weak. He could hear people gathering around now. Voices. Whispers. "Is she okay? What happened? Oh my God, is she breathing?" David tuned them all out. He kept his hand on the old woman's wrist, feeling her pulse. It was still there, but it was getting weaker. "Come on," David whispered. "Stay with me. Stay with me." Her eyelids fluttered. Just a little. David leaned closer. "That's it," he said. "You're okay. Help is coming. Just stay with me." Her lips moved. No sound came out, but her lips moved. David felt a small rush of hope. "Don't try to talk," he said. "Just breathe, nice and slow." Her hand wrinkled, thin, covered in age spots, moved just a little. Her fingers brushed against David's hand. And then, very faintly, she squeezed. David's throat tightened. "That's it," he whispered. "You're doing great. You're going to be okay." He didn't know if that was true, but he said it anyway. Because sometimes, people just need to hear it. The sound of sirens came a few minutes later. Paramedics rushed in with the stretcher and equipment and calm, professional voices. David stepped back, letting them take over. One of the paramedics, a young guy with short blonde hair, glanced at David. "You the one who called it in?" "No," David said, "but I stayed with her, checked her pulse, made sure her airway was open." The paramedic nodded. "Good work." They lifted the old woman onto the stretcher, strapping her in, checking her vitals, talking in medical terms David didn't understand. As they wheeled her toward the door, she turned her head, just a little, and her eyes cloudy, tired, but still alive, locked onto David's. She mouthed something. David couldn't hear it over the noise, but he thought it looked like 2 words. "Thank you." David didn't think about her again after that. Not really. He finished his shopping, drove home, made spaghetti for dinner, watched an episode of some crime show on Netflix, went to bed. Life went back to normal. On Wednesday, he taught his students about the solar system. On Thursday, they did a spelling test. On Friday, they had an assembly about fire safety. Everything was exactly the same, except on Saturday morning when David woke up to the sound of thunder. No, not thunder, motorcycles. David stood at his kitchen window now, staring at the wall of leather and chrome outside his house. His heart was racing. His hands were shaking. The bikers weren't doing anything. They were just there, standing beside their bikes, arms crossed, faces hard, waiting. David swallowed. His mouth was dry. He had no idea what to do. Should he call the police? Should he hide? Should he? A knock. 3 loud, heavy knocks on his front door. David nearly jumped out of his skin. He stood there, frozen, staring at the door like it might explode. Another knock. Louder this time. David forced his legs to move. He walked slowly toward the door, every step feeling like it took a year. His hand reached for the doorknob. He hesitated. What if this is it? What if I open this door and another knock? David closed his eyes, took a breath, and opened the door. Standing on his porch was the biggest man David had ever seen, easily 6'5", shoulders like a truck, arms covered in tattoos, skulls, flames, eagles, words David couldn't read from here. A thick beard streaked with gray, a leather vest with patches and pins, and a name stitched across the chest. Chief. The man stared down at David. His eyes were dark, sharp, Unreadable. David's voice came out as a squeak. "Can I help you?" The big man didn't answer right away. He just stood there, looking David up and down like he was deciding something. Finally, he spoke. His voice was deep, rough, like gravel in a blender. "You David Cole?" David nodded. He didn't trust his voice. The big man's expression didn't change. "You the one who helped an old woman at Turner's Market last Tuesday?" David's stomach dropped. "Oh no. Oh no. I didn't. She collapsed. And Yeah," the man said. "That was my mother." David felt the blood drain from his face. The man stepped closer. David stepped back. "She could have died that day," the man said. His voice was low, dangerous. David's back hit the doorframe. I'm sorry. I didn't know." The man stared at him, and then he smiled. Not a mean smile, not a threatening smile, a real smile. "You saved her life," the man said. David blinked. "What?" The man's smile grew wider. "Doctor said if you hadn't been there, if you hadn't kept her calm, kept her breathing, she wouldn't have made it." David's brain was spinning. I didn't. The man stuck out his hand. "Name's Marcus. Marcus Steele, leader of the Iron Horsemen." David stared at the hand. Then, slowly, he shook it. Marcus's grip was like a vice. "My mother," Marcus said, "is the most important person in my life. And you saved her." David didn't know what to say. Marcus turned and looked back at the sea of motorcycles lining the street. "So we came here today," Marcus said, "to say thank you." David's mouth fell open. All of you?" Marcus nodded. "Every single one." David looked past him. 200 bikers, all standing in silence, all staring at him. And then, as one, they raised their fists in the air and roared. The sound was deafening. The whole street shook. David felt tears prick his eyes. He didn't understand. He didn't understand any of this. Marcus turned back to him. "You did something good," Marcus said, "and we don't forget." He stepped back. "Enjoy your weekend, Mr. Cole." And with that, Marcus walked down the porch steps, climbed onto his bike, and revved the engine. One by one, the other bikers did the same. The roar grew louder, louder, louder. And then, like a wave, they pulled away. 200 motorcycles, rolling down the street, disappearing into the distance. David stood on his porch, staring after them, his heart still pounding. And then he heard it. A voice. From across the street, his neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, was standing on her porch, phone in hand, mouth open. "David," she shouted, "who were those people?" David opened his mouth to answer, but before he could, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out of his pocket. A text from a number he didn't recognize. "Check your mailbox." David frowned. He walked down his porch steps, across his front yard, and opened his mailbox. Inside was a single envelope, plain, white, no returned address. David opened it. Inside was a handwritten note on thick paper. "You gave my mother a second chance. Now I'm giving you one. If you ever need anything, call this number, day or night. No questions asked. You're family now, Marcus." At the bottom of the note was a phone number. David stared at it. His hands were shaking again, not from fear this time, from something else, something he couldn't name. He folded the note, slipped it into his pocket, and walked back inside his house. The door clicked shut behind him, and for the first time in a very long time. David Cole smiled. "If this story hits you in the chest, do me a favor, hit that like button, drop a comment, and tell me what you're thinking right now. And if you want to see what happens next, subscribe, because trust me, this story is just getting started. David didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything over and over in his head. The motorcycles, the noise, Marcus standing on his porch, the note. Your family now. What did that even mean? David had never been part of anything like that. He wasn't a biker. He wasn't tough. He was a fifth-grade teacher who drove a Honda Civic and ate microwave dinners and went to bed at 10 o'clock every single night. He didn't fit in that world. But Marcus had looked him in the eye and said those words like they were a promise. David turned onto his side, staring at the note sitting on his nightstand. The phone number stared back at him. He reached out, touched the paper with one finger, then pulled his hand back. What am I even thinking? He rolled over, closed his eyes, tried to sleep. But every time he started to drift off, he heard the sound of engines roaring, felt the ground shaking beneath him, saw Marcus's face. If you ever need anything, call this number. David walked into Maplewood Elementary at 7:30, just like he always did. He carried his coffee in one hand and his bag full of graded papers in the other. The hallways smelled like floor cleaner and pencil shavings. Kids were already starting to arrive, backpacks bouncing, voices echoing, sneakers squeaking on the tile. David smiled at a few students as he passed. Morning, Mr. Cole. Hi, Mr. Cole. Mr. Cole, did you see the new Marvel movie yet? He answered them all automatically, his mind somewhere else. When he reached his classroom, he unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room was exactly how he'd left it on Friday. Desks in neat rows, alphabet posters on the walls, a bulletin board covered in student drawings of the solar system. Everything in its place, everything normal. David set his bag down on his desk and exhaled. Okay, this is good. This is normal. Everything is fine. He pulled out his lesson plan for the day. Math in the morning. Reading after lunch. Science before dismissal. Simple. Easy. Routine. David felt his shoulders start to relax. And then the intercom crackled. Mr. Cole, please report to the front office. Mr. Cole, to the front office. David froze. He never got called to the office. Not unless something was wrong. His stomach twisted. He left his classroom and walked down the hallway, past the gym, past the library, past the cafeteria. When he reached the front office, the secretary, Mrs. Brennan, a cheerful woman in her 50s, looked up and smiled. Oh, David, good, you're here. Is everything okay? David asked. Everything's fine, Mrs. Brennan said. There's just someone here to see you. David blinked. Someone here to see me? Mrs. Brennan nodded toward the waiting area near the front doors. David turned, and his heart stopped. Sitting on one of the plastic chairs, hands folded in her lap, was the old woman from the grocery store. She looked better now. Her color was back. Her eyes were bright. She was wearing a floral dress and a light sweater, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. But it was her. No question. David's mouth went dry. The old woman stood up slowly, using a cane to steady herself. And then she smiled. Hello, dear, she said softly. David just stood there, frozen. The old woman walked toward him, her cane tapping against the floor. When she reached him, she stopped and looked up at him with eyes full of warmth. I never got to say thank you, she said. David's throat felt tight. You don't have to. Yes, I do, she said firmly. She reached out and took his hand in both of hers. Her skin was soft, warm. You saved my life, she said, and I will never forget that. David felt tears prick his eyes. He didn't know what to say. The old woman squeezed his hand. "My name is Ruth," she said. "Ruth Steele." David nodded. "I'm David." "I know," Ruth said, smiling. "My son told me all about you." David swallowed. He came to my house with all his friends." Ruth laughed a soft, gentle sound. "I heard," she said. "Marcus can be a bit dramatic." David let out a shaky breath. "That's one word for it." Ruth patted his hand. "He means well," she said. "He just wanted to make sure you knew how grateful we are." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small box wrapped in brown paper. "This is for you," she said. David stared at the box. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," Ruth said. David took the box. It was light. He looked at Ruth, unsure. "Open it later," she said. "When you have a quiet moment." David nodded. Ruth smiled again. "You're a good man, David Cole," she said. "Don't ever forget that." And with that, she turned and walked slowly toward the door, her cane tapping with every step. David watched her go. Mrs. Brennan appeared beside him. "Well," she said. "That was sweet." David didn't answer. He just stood there, holding the small box in his hands, his mind spinning. David waited until lunch to open the box. He sat alone in his classroom. The door closed, the lights dimmed. He set the box on his desk and carefully unwrapped the brown paper. Inside was a wooden box, old, handmade, with a carved design on the lid. David opened it. Inside was a photograph, black and white, old, faded around the edges. It showed a young woman standing beside a motorcycle. She was smiling bright, full of life. Behind her was a man with his arm around her shoulders, grinning at the camera. David stared at the photo, and then he realized the young woman was Ruth, and the man beside her was Marcus, but younger, much younger, maybe 18 or 19. David's chest tightened. Beneath the photograph was a folded piece of paper. David unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky but careful. This was taken 40 years ago. That was the day Marcus got his first bike. He was so proud. I was so scared. But I stood beside him anyway, because that's what mothers do. You gave me more time with my son, David. You gave me more days to see him smile. I will never be able to repay you for that, but I will spend every day I have left being grateful. Ruth. David's vision blurred. He wiped his eyes quickly, set the note down, and sat there in the quiet, feeling something heavy and warm settle in his chest. David was grading math tests at his kitchen table when his phone rang. He glanced at the screen. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick it up. "Hello? Mr. Cole?" The voice was deep, rough, familiar. David sat up straight. "Marcus?" "Yeah," Marcus said. "Hope I'm not bothering you." No, it's fine," David said quickly. "Is everything okay? Is your mom?" "She's good," Marcus said. "Better than good, actually. Won't stop talking about you." David smiled despite himself. "She came to see me, at school. She didn't have to do that." "She wanted to," Marcus said. "And so did I." David frowned. "What do you mean?" There was a pause. "Listen," Marcus said. "I know this might sound weird, but I wanted to ask you something." David's stomach tightened. "Okay. We're having a ride this Saturday," Marcus said. "Memorial ride for a brother we lost a few years back. Big group, whole club. We stop at his grave, pay our respects, then ride up to the lake and have a cookout." David didn't know what to say. That sounds nice." "It is," Marcus said. "And I want you to come." David blinked. "What?" "I want you there," Marcus said. "As my guest. You don't need a bike. You can ride with me." David's heart was pounding. Marcus, I don't think You don't have to decide right now, Marcus said. But think about it. My mom would love to see you. The guys would love to meet you. And honestly, I think you'd have a good time. David opened his mouth, closed it. I'll think about it, he said finally. That's all I ask, Marcus said. There was a pause. David? Yeah? You helped my family when you didn't have to, Marcus said. That means something. It means something to me. So just think about it, okay? Okay, David said quietly. Good, Marcus said. I'll text you the details. Take care, brother. The line went dead. David set his phone down and stared at it for a long, long time. David didn't sleep again. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Marcus's invitation. He'd never done anything like that before. Never been part of a group. Never been to a biker event. He didn't even know how to talk to people like that. But then he thought about Ruth, her smile, her hands holding his, the photograph in the wooden box. And he thought about Marcus, standing on his porch, looking him in the eye, calling him family. David sat up, reached for his phone, found Marcus's number, and before he could talk himself out of it, he typed a message. I'll come. He hit send. 3 seconds later, his phone buzzed. Hell yeah! See you Saturday, brother. David set his phone down. His heart was racing. But this time, it wasn't from fear. David stood outside his house at 9 o'clock, wearing jeans and a plain gray hoodie. He felt ridiculous, like a kid showing up to the first day of school. And then he heard it, the rumble of an engine. David looked up. A single motorcycle was coming down the street. Black, chrome, massive. Marcus pulled up to the curb and cut the engine. He climbed off the bike and grinned. Ready? David's mouth was dry. I think so. Marcus walked over and clapped him on the shoulder. You're gonna be fine, he said. Trust me. He handed David a helmet. David stared at it. Just put it on, Marcus said, laughing. I'm not gonna let you fall off. David put the helmet on. It was heavy. Marcus climbed back onto the bike and gestured for David to get on behind him. David hesitated. Come on, Marcus said. We're burning daylight. David climbed on. His hands gripped the sides of the seat awkwardly. Marcus looked back over his shoulder. Hold on to me, man. I'm serious. David swallowed and wrapped his arms around Marcus's waist. The engine roared to life. David's heart jumped. Here we go, Marcus shouted. And they took off. The wind hit David's face like a wall. The world blurred. The bike roared beneath him. And for the first time in years, David felt alive. They arrived at the cemetery 20 minutes later. It was quiet, peaceful, rolling hills covered in green grass, rows and rows of headstones. And parked along the road, 200 motorcycles. David climbed off the bike, his legs shaky. Marcus pulled off his helmet and looked at him. You good? David nodded, even though his heart was still pounding. Yeah, I'm good. Marcus smiled. Come on. They walked through the cemetery together, past the rows of graves, until they reached a large group gathered around a single headstone. The bikers were standing in silence, heads bowed, hands folded. Some had tears on their faces. Marcus stopped beside the headstone. David read the name carved into the stone. Jackson Reaper Morris, 1975, 2021. Brother, rider, legend. Marcus placed a hand on the headstone. "Miss you, brother," he said softly. The other bikers murmured in agreement. And then, one by one, they each stepped forward, placed a hand on the stone, said a word, a memory, a prayer. David stood at the back, watching, and then Ruth appeared beside him. She smiled. "Hello, David." David's throat tightened. "Hi, Ruth." She took his hand. "Thank you for coming," she said. David nodded. "Thank you for inviting me." Ruth looked at the headstone. "Jackson was like a son to me," she said quietly. "He saved Marcus's life once. Took a bullet for him." David's eyes widened. Ruth squeezed his hand. "Family isn't always blood," she said. "Sometimes it's the people who show up when it matters." David looked at her, and then at Marcus, and then at the 200 bikers standing in silence around a grave. And he understood. After the cemetery, they rode to the lake. It took an hour. The whole way, David held on to Marcus, the wind roaring in his ears, the world flying past. When they arrived, the sun was high and bright. The lake was huge blue and calm, surrounded by trees. There were picnic tables, grills, coolers full of drinks, music playing from someone's truck, kids running around, dogs barking, laughter. David stood there, taking it all in. Marcus walked up beside him. "Not what you expected, huh?" David shook his head. "No," he said honestly. It's really nice." Marcus grinned. "Come on. I'll introduce you to some people." For the next 2 hours, David met bikers. Big guys with nicknames like Tank and Bulldog and Wrench. Women with tattoos and leather vests and loud laughs. Kids who called Marcus Uncle Mark. Everyone was kind. Everyone shook his hand. Everyone thanked him. David felt like he was in a dream. And then, just as the sun started to set, a man walked up to Marcus. He was younger, maybe mid-20s. Skinny, nervous looking. "Chief," the man said quietly, "we got a problem." Marcus's expression changed instantly. "What kind of problem?" The man glanced at David, then back at Marcus. "The jackals," he said. "They're here." David saw Marcus's jaw tighten. "Where?" "East side of the lake," the man said. 20 of them, maybe more." Marcus didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he turned to David. "Stay here," he said. "What's going on?" David asked. Marcus's eyes were hard. "Nothing you need to worry about." And before David could say anything else, Marcus was gone. What happens next will change everything. If you're hooked, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment and tell me, what do you think is about to happen? Because I promise you, you're not ready. David stood there, frozen, watching Marcus disappear into the crowd of bikers. The music was still playing. Kids were still laughing. But something had changed. The air felt different, heavier. David looked around. The bikers who had been smiling and joking just moments ago were now standing straighter. Faces harder, voices lower. Ruth appeared beside him, her hand on his arm. "David," she said softly. "Come, sit with me." "What's happening?" David asked. Ruth's smile was gentle, but her eyes were worried. "Old business," she said. "Nothing for you to worry about." But David was worried. He could see it in the way the men were moving quick, purposeful, gathering in small groups. He could hear the change in their voices, no more laughter, only low, serious tones. Ruth guided him to a picnic table near the water. "Sit," she said. David sat. Ruth sat beside him, her cane resting against the table. For a moment, neither of them spoke. David stared out at the lake, watching the sunlight dance across the water. "Ruth," he said quietly, "who are the jackals?" Ruth was silent for a long time. Then she sighed. "Another club," she said. "They've had problems with Marcus's group for years." "What kind of problems?" Ruth looked at him. "The kind that don't get solved with words, dear." David's stomach twisted. "Are they dangerous?" Ruth didn't answer right away. "Marcus will handle it," she said finally. "He always does." But her voice was tight, scared. David looked back toward the crowd of bikers. Marcus was in the center of them now, talking fast, gesturing with his hands. The men around him were nodding. And then, as one, they started walking toward the east side of the lake. David stood up. "David," Ruth started. But David was already moving. He didn't know why. He didn't know what he was going to do. He just knew he couldn't sit there and do nothing. He pushed through the crowd, following the bikers, his heart pounding in his chest. When he reached the edge of the clearing, he stopped, and his blood ran cold. There were maybe 25 men standing on the other side of the clearing. They wore black leather vests, just like Marcus's group, but the patches were different. A snarling jackal head. The words "Jackal's MC" stitched in red. They stood in a line, arms crossed, faces hard. And in front of them was a man who looked like he could break someone in half. He was tall, broad, bald, covered in scars. His vest had a patch that read "President." Marcus stopped about 10 feet away from him. His crew spread out behind him, a wall of muscle and leather, and barely contained anger. For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the wind rustling through the trees. Then the bald man smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Marcus Steele," he said, his voice like gravel scraping metal. "Long time." Marcus didn't smile back. "Cain," he said flatly, "what do you want?" The man, Cain, tilted his head. "Just passing through," he said. "Saw the bikes, thought we'd say hello." "You said it," Marcus said. "Now leave." Cain laughed. It was a cold sound. "That's not very hospitable," he said, "especially for a memorial ride. Who died? Someone I know?" One of Marcus's men stepped forward, fists clenched. Marcus held up a hand, stopping him. "You need to go," Marcus said, his voice low and dangerous. "Right now." Cain's smile disappeared. "Or what?" Marcus didn't blink. "Or I make you go." The tension in the air was suffocating. David could feel it pressing down on his chest. He wanted to run. He wanted to hide. But he couldn't move. Cain stared at Marcus for a long moment. Then he looked past him, and his eyes landed on David. David's heart stopped. Cain's smile came back, wider this time. "Who's that?" Cain asked, nodding toward David. "New recruit?" Marcus didn't turn around. "None of your business." Cain laughed again. "He looks scared," Cain said. "Doesn't look like one of yours." "I said," Marcus repeated, his voice like steel, "it's none of your business." Cain took a step forward. So did Marcus. The bikers behind them tensed. David's hands were shaking. This was going to explode. He could feel it. Any second now, someone was going to throw the first punch, and everything would fall apart. And then, David did something crazy. He stepped forward. "Stop!" Every head turned. Marcus spun around, his eyes wide. "David, get back." "No," David said. His voice was shaking, but he kept walking. Straight toward Marcus. Straight toward Cain. "David, I'm serious." David stopped beside Marcus. He looked at Cain. Up close, the man was even more terrifying. His eyes were cold, empty, like he'd seen too much and felt too little. But David didn't look away. "I don't know who you are," David said, his voice trembling. "And I don't know what happened between you and Marcus. But this," He gestured around. "This is a memorial. People are here to remember someone they loved. And you're disrespecting that." Cain stared at him. No one moved. No one breathed. David's heart was hammering so hard he thought it might burst. And then Cain did something David didn't expect. He laughed. A real laugh. Loud and genuine. "You got some balls, little man," Cain said, shaking his head. "I'll give you that." He looked at Marcus. "Where'd you find this guy?" Marcus didn't answer. Cain studied David for another long moment. Then he stepped back. "All right," he said, out of respect for the dead. He glanced at Marcus. "And because your friend here's got guts, we'll go." He turned to his crew. "Mount up." The jackals hesitated. "Now!" Cain barked. They moved. Slowly. Reluctantly. But they moved. Cain looked back at Marcus one last time. "This isn't over," he said quietly. Marcus's jaw tightened. "It never is." Cain smirked. Then he climbed onto his bike, revved the engine, and led his crew out of the clearing. The sound of their motorcycles faded into the distance. And then, silence. Marcus turned to David. His face was unreadable. "What the hell were you thinking?" David swallowed. You just, what?" Marcus snapped. "You just thought you'd walk up to one of the most dangerous men in this state and tell him to leave?" David flinched. "I didn't want anyone to get hurt." "Someone was going to get hurt," Marcus shouted. "And it was going to be you." David looked down. Marcus took a breath, then another. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. "You don't know these people, David. You don't know what they're capable of." "I know," David said softly, "but I couldn't just stand there." Marcus stared at him, and then, slowly, his expression softened. "You're insane," Marcus said. David let out a shaky laugh. "Yeah, maybe." Marcus shook his head. "Come on, let's get out of here." The drive home. David didn't say much on the ride back. Neither did Marcus. When they pulled up in front of David's house, the sun was just starting to set. Marcus cut the engine. David climbed off the bike and pulled off the helmet. "Thanks for the ride," David said. Marcus nodded. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Marcus spoke. "What you did today," he said, "that was either the bravest thing I've ever seen." He paused. "Or the dumbest." David smiled weakly. "Probably both." Marcus let out a low chuckle. "Yeah, probably." He looked at David. "But you stood up," Marcus said, "when no one else would. That takes guts." David didn't know what to say. Marcus reached into his vest and pulled out a folded piece of cloth. He held it out. David took it. It was a patch, black and red, the Iron Horsemen logo stitched across the front, and underneath, honorary member. David's breath caught. "Marcus, I can't." "Yes, you can," Marcus said firmly. "You're one of us now, whether you like it or not." David stared at the patch. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything," Marcus said. "Just keep it. And if you ever need us, you call. Got it?" David nodded, his throat tight. "Got it." Marcus grinned. "Good." He revved the engine. "See you around, brother." And with that, he drove off, the sound of his motorcycle echoing down the street. David stood there, holding the patch, watching until Marcus disappeared around the corner. Then he walked inside, set the patch on his kitchen table, and sat down. His hands were still shaking, but not from fear this time, from something else, something he'd never felt before. Belonging. 2 days later, David was in his classroom, teaching a lesson on fractions, when his phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again, and again. During lunch, he finally checked it. 7 missed calls. all from Marcus. David's stomach dropped. He called back immediately. Marcus answered on the first ring. "David, thank God." "What's wrong?" David asked. Marcus's voice was tight, strained. "It's my mom." David's heart stopped. "What happened?" "She collapsed again," Marcus said. "They took her to County General. They're running tests, but—" his voice cracked. "It doesn't look good." David felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. "I'm coming," he said. "You don't have to—" "I'm coming," David said. He hung up, grabbed his keys, and ran. At the hospital, David burst through the doors of County General 20 minutes later. He ran to the front desk, breathless. "Ruth Steele," he gasped. "Where is she?" The nurse checked her computer. "ICU, 4th floor." But only family. David was already running toward the elevators. When he reached the ICU, he saw Marcus standing in the hallway. His face was pale. His eyes were red. David walked up to him. "How is she?" Marcus didn't answer right away. He just stared at the floor. "They don't know if she's going to make it," he said finally. David's chest tightened. "Can I see her?" Marcus nodded. "She's been asking for you." David's throat closed up. Marcus led him to a room at the end of the hall. The door was open. Inside, Ruth was lying in a hospital bed, tubes and wires running everywhere. Her face was pale. Her breathing was shallow, but her eyes were open. And when she saw David, she smiled. "David," she whispered. David walked to her bedside and took her hand. "I'm here," he said. Ruth squeezed his hand weakly. "I knew you'd come." Tears blurred David's vision. "Of course I came." Ruth looked at him for a long moment. "You're a good man," she said softly. "Don't ever forget that." David shook his head. "You're going to be fine," he said. "You're going to get through this." Ruth smiled. "Maybe," she said. "Maybe not." "Ruth, listen to me," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Whatever happens, you take care of my boy. Promise me." David's tears spilled over. "I promise." Ruth closed her eyes. "Good," she whispered. And then her hand went limp in his. The machine started beeping. Nurses rushed in. Marcus grabbed David's arm, pulling him back. "Let them work," Marcus said, his voice breaking. David stood there, frozen, watching as the nurses worked frantically over Ruth's still body. And all he could think was, "Please, please don't let her die, please." 1 hour later, the doctor came out. Marcus stood up immediately. "How is she?" The doctor's face was grave. "We stabilized her," he said, "but she's very weak. The next 24 hours are critical." Marcus nodded, his jaw tight. "Can I see her?" "She's sleeping," the doctor said. "But yes, one at a time." Marcus looked at David. "You go first." David shook his head. "No, she's your mom. You should—" "I need a minute," Marcus said, his voice cracking. David nodded. He walked back into Ruth's room. She was sleeping now, peaceful, quiet. David sat down beside her bed and took her hand. "I don't know if you can hear me," he said softly, "but I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be right here, okay?" Ruth didn't respond, but David stayed. And he didn't let go of her hand. Not once. 3 days later, Ruth opened her eyes. David was asleep in the chair beside her bed, his head resting on the edge of her mattress, his hand still holding hers. Ruth smiled. "David," she whispered. David's eyes flew open. "Ruth." He sat up, his heart racing. "You're awake. Oh my God, you're awake." Ruth squeezed his hand. "You stayed," she said. David's eyes filled with tears. Of course I stayed. Ruth's smile widened. You really are family, aren't you? David nodded, unable to speak. The door opened. Marcus walked in. When he saw his mother awake, his face crumpled. Mom! Ruth held out her other hand. Marcus crossed the room in 3 steps and took it, tears streaming down his face. I thought I lost you, he said. Ruth shook her head. Not yet, she said softly. Not yet. She looked at David, then at Marcus. I have both my boys here, she said. How could I leave? Marcus let out a broken laugh. David wiped his eyes. And in that moment, in that small hospital room, they weren't a biker, a teacher, and an old woman. They were a family. 1 month later, David stood on his porch, watching the sunset over his quiet street. In his hand was the patch Marcus had given him. Honorary member. He smiled. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Ride this Saturday? Mom wants to come. Says she misses you. David's smile grew wider. He typed back, I'll be there. He slipped the phone into his pocket and looked out at the street again. It was still quiet, still peaceful, but it didn't feel empty anymore. Because David Cole, the 5th grade teacher who lived alone and liked routine, wasn't alone anymore. He had a family, and that changed everything. If this story hit you in the heart, please hit that like button. Comment below and tell me what moment made you cry. And if you want more stories like this, real, raw, and emotional, subscribe. Because I've got so many more to share. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And remember, sometimes the best families aren't the ones we're born into. They're the ones we choose.